Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michigan Football, the voice of college football. I am your host, Dre. Um, Thank you for everyone that's joining us this evening. Um, today is really the first episode of us officially being in the off season. Um, as Michigan now seems to be in a bit of a wilderness right now. Where do they go forward from here? Um, Especially considering their head coach seems to have one foot out the door. So it it's amazing, right? This is going on 2 years where um, Michigan has been put in a situation, especially from an administration standpoint, that they don't know the certainty of their head coach position uh, after two really good seasons. Um, and it seemed like right after the bowl game versus TCU, uh, when Harbaugh came out and finally seemed to, in his own way, squash any kind of rumors that he was looking to the NFL, uh, essentially saying in an indirect way, I'm paraphrasing, of course, um, we don't know what the future holds, but I expect to enthusiastically be coaching for the University of Michigan this fall. Um, as we can see now, if any of you guys have monitored any kind of reports or rumors out there, that there's still a lot of smoke to the fire that Harbaugh potentially will be leaving for the NFL. He's been now connected to the Denver Broncos job as well as the Indianapolis coach job. Um, Both have pros and cons to the job. The Colts have the number one overall pick. Probably going to take Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or whichever quarterback they have the best evaluation for. And the different Broncos have a pretty good roster. They had a disaster of a start to their season. Probably a terrible hire in Nathaniel Hackett. But they were supposed to be a team that was going all in, which is why they traded multiple first round picks to get Russell Wilson because they felt like they had the type of roster that was ready to win a championship, and all they needed was the quarterback position to be solidified. So um, that that job could be very appealing as well, despite them having a disaster this past year. So, where does that leave Michigan? As of now, it's kind of in limbo. Um, they are pretty much waiting to see what Harbaugh does. Um, and it's unfortunate because I believe this university has given this coach everything he's wanted for the most part, right? Could there be some things with NIL and maybe some certain leverage points and um, back loops or different aspects, especially in terms of recruiting and helping gain a competitive edge that Harbaugh has wanted that Michigan hasn't quite granted? Sure, I'm sure if you did some digging, that could be there's probably some merit to that. But overall, no one really stepping on his toes, giving him carte blanche to do whatever he wants. He's essentially had no boss, right? You could say Manuel is his boss, but for the most part, like I said, Jim's sort of been allowed to run this program the way he's wanted without anyone's really getting in his way. So it's unfortunate from that standpoint. Um, and also just where the program is. I mean, it took 7 years, guys, to get to this point where they were constantly climbing. From the time Jimmy got there, they were climbing. They were climbing, 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 climbing. They had some pretty good immediate success in terms of turning their program around, going for what was it, 5 wins, pretty Hoke last year, going right away to what was it, 9-3, 10-3 uh, Harbaugh's first season, but they weren't, beating the rivals yet. Still weren't winning a ton of bowl games, so it took a while, especially against Ohio State. And finally, starting last year, they was able to get over the hump, right? And you start to see the real fruits of the labor of the last 7 years, and Michigan fans were able to experience what we all thought we would have a lot sooner when Jimmy was hired. And now we finally at a place where the program seems to be very healthy. Um, Seems to be one of the big dogs in college football, where now our head coach uh, has one foot out the door. And it's obvious that his emotionally, mentally, he's just not all in anymore, right? And that's not me trying um, to attack him or say he's less than as a coach. He's a good coach. He has foibles, things I don't like necessarily, but he's a really good coach. But how he's going about handling the program, it's just not right. It's not right for you know the way it should be. So um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. And as we speak, I need to get the looks like I need to get Mr. Mark Rogers on our stream. The man. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll get Mark to join here. But for you guys who are, here, please share your thoughts. I mean, what do you think? I mean, are you happy with, how Jimmy's handling this situation? Do you wish he would do it differently? I mean, what do you think? So NFL Pants Fan '07, the NFL doesn't the NFL doesn't want him. He does come back, they need a coach in waiting. If he does come back, they need a coach in waiting. Well, some people will say that they already have that, and Sharon Moore or even Mike Hart. So um, I don't know. That's interesting. We'll see if he does leave. If that's the case, um, guys, go ahead and fill the comment section here while I get Mark on board. And let me know your thoughts, and we'll read them here shortly. In terms of where does it go from here? How do you feel about Harbaugh and the way he's handling the situation? Okay, so let's see what Rod Miller says. Happy if he leaves, happy if he stays. Um, Promote Sharon if he leaves and get right for 2023. Yeah, um, I'm kind of at that point too, Rob, where it's like, at this point, this merry-go-round that you're doing, um, that he's doing, excuse me, I think it's getting to a point where it's hurting the university. It hurts them if he stays because I don't know if you are a young recruit, how committed can you be, especially nowadays where recruits seem to be even more iffy with being fully committed to universities, right? How can you commit to the University of Michigan where you're the head coach is so let's be honest, so blunt with his actions, with it where his emotion and his thought process is. It's clear as day that he doesn't want to stay in college football. He wants to get back to NFL. And let me be very clear, guys. This is not to demean Jim Harbaugh for wanting to do that. Anybody has the right to do and make changes, lateral changes, or mobility with their career. I will never condemn anybody for that. My problem lies with how he's going about it. That's it. How he's going about it. And it's getting to the point where now it's really detrimental. to the university, and it's not right. And you know what? I'm actually very disappointed in Ward Manuel how it seems like he's going about it. Like, hey, look, Jam, I respect what you've done here, but we need to have some kind of idea where you're leaning. We can't have this continuous seesaw type of uh, actions from you, right? You just went through this last year. You went to go interview with Minnesota. You came back and you said that this was over, that you would not be doing this again. Well, here we are again, right? You came back in December, this past December, and you said um, that you would not be doing this again. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but yet here we are. So it's clear as that you're not a man of your word, right? And that's okay that you want to do something different with your career, but let's be a little bit more transparent with that, so everyone can be on the same page. That's all Michigan fans are asking for. Let's be transparent with what you want to do. If you don't want to be here anymore, you essentially fulfilled your promise. It took a while. Some people will say his promise was to win a national title. For me, I think realistically, getting Michigan back to the top of the Big Ten, um, now again to the CFP back-to-back years, I think he's done a really good job, man. Really good job of getting this program back to being more than respectable, being a big time. No, I would say being a big time player, and I'll say an outside contender to one day win a national title. They're nowhere near there yet, And then if anything that shows that, it was Monday night when you saw what Georgia did to TCU. Um, do I think Michigan would have put up a more competitive game? Yes, but by all means, it was not very close. And we welcome in Mr. Mark Rogers. Mark, my apologies for the technical difficulties there, but
No
welcome.
worries. Hey Dre, how you doing?
Well, I would be doing a lot better if our head coach was not doing this musical chairs act he does every single off season. And it's unfortunate because I just really feel like with the type of years that Michigan has had back to back, that this is a real opportunity to take this momentum and to really hit the recruiting grounds hard, make some headway, get into a different tier of recruiting classes. Instead of being historically, I know you're really good with your stats, but probably in the top 15, top 10 as a program, because you get in the top seven, top five, by being the CFP back to back years. And it's been anything but that, right? They've actually gone up to a really slow start with recruiting, and I believe that it has a lot to do with you know this two-step that Jimmy has done the last 2 years.
Yeah, and he's also made comments that made it sound for sure that this is a thing of the past. Is was his big statement last year, and he obviously wasn't thinking forward. He was just speaking in the moment and thinking, okay, I got past this, and this isn't going to happen right now, so I can make this big, grand, bold statement to put everybody at ease in maize and blue to say I'm here and this is behind me. And I don't remember exactly the terminology, but here we are, one off season later, and he's back at it. And yeah, I think he needs to be a little bit more careful with what he says and doesn't say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, your words have meaning, especially when it seems like you're trying to put a stop to rumors or make some kind of emphatic statement, and it just seems like even when you do that, your actions fly in the face of that. So now it's coming off as you're being either misleading or you're just lying, right? You're not being transparent, and I think at the end of the day, that's all Michigan fans can ask for. Especially speaking for myself, I mean, I would never condemn anybody for trying to expand their career and take on different type of opportunities. I mean, the NFL is the height of the coaching profession in football. That's the height of it. S- you know or maybe it's equal and it's just a different game if you want to look at it that way, but it's obvious that it was a area in his career he has success, and it feels like he probably has unfinished business there, and that's okay. But come on, man, back to back years, if you weren't really done with this so-called itch that you've had, then why go out there? After last year, at your interview with Minnesota, and it didn't work out, would you say that this was over? How about you to say, this is something that I'm interested in. But as of now, I'm committed to this program. But it's just, and maybe it's just due to his personality. But I know one thing: he's not doing anybody any favors, including himself.
The one thing I will say is, though, that even though I don't agree with his approach, and again, it's more about what he has said this offseason that I've seen, and definitely last offseason that have obviously turned out not to be true. Uh, if he's getting courted by NFL teams, I don't know how to handle that in a delicate fashion, just because he's got one of the premier jobs in college football, and he also wants to see what these NFL clubs have to say and what they're going to offer.
Yeah, no, I understand that too. And it's one of those things where and I like to highlight this comment by Todd Johnson. Just be aware this is Jim Sailing, CFP appearances at best. Um, yeah, I think there's some credence to that. But what I would say, uh, for one, I think as a Michigan fan, you get to ask yourself, do you believe that as a program, let's say Harbaugh aside, let's say as a program, do you think this is the ceiling, right? Like, has Harbaugh taken the Michigan football program as far as it could possibly go, or is this something where has hit his ceiling with his particular style of play? And I think it's debatable both ways. Um, I think, um, if he was to leave, would I be concerned that we'll go whoever comes in, or internally whoever's promoted, that we're going back to the Brady Hoke and Rich Rod years? No, I'm not concerned about that. I believe those two regimes were an outlier in bad Michigan football history. I don't think we're going back to that. But I do believe that there's a chance this program takes a certain step, like takes a step back, because one of the biggest things that no one's really talking about is the way recruiting has gone the last couple of years. If Michigan wants to sustain this type of success they have had, you got to recruit. You got to get the players. I know you can be really good at player development and squeeze the most juice out of that particular fruit of player, but you got to have the guys. You got to have the speed. You got to have the strength. And Monday night is clear evidence of that. It's clear evidence of that. It's just it's only so much coaching up you can do, right? And I just don't see how that's even going to get to that remotely to that point with the way Jimmy's going about it. Because if I'm a 5-star kid, there's no way I'm going to play for Michigan the way it looks right now. In terms of the turmoil with the head coach position, not the university itself.
Yeah, I think that what you just said about whether he can take it to the next level or it can be taken to the next level, I agree that it's debatable, but I tend to think that, he's brought it this far. I believe that he can win a national championship at Michigan. That
Wow.
doesn't necessarily mean I'm predicting it, but I believe that he can. I believe if he's done what he was able to do over the last 2 years, that they can win a championship at Michigan, a national championship. But I also believe that somebody else could do it too. It's not like he is the only guy that can raise this program to that level.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things where it will be interesting if he left, is how would the next coach go about running this program stylistically? Because I think one of the worst things you could do in terms of trying to sustain the success in the short term is change the style. That's why I think they'll probably lean more towards internally first. People who kind of, of course, know what type of offense they run, know the players, and kind of will try to stick with what's working right now, and maybe make subtle changes over time. And granted, guys, there's no breaking news. He has not left, has not signed on a dotted line anywhere, but we're just talking what ifs. Um, but I will say, to win at the highest level, to win a national title, you gotta get more of the 5-star kids, and you do have to show some kind of ability to have just flexibility, with your offense, and do that earlier on in the season. I still will harp um, on the point that Harbaugh and his staff did not do JJ McCarthy uh, do service by handing the football off 30 times his first couple of starts. I still felt like, especially with the quality opponents that they had, that he would have been better suited, throwing the football more and just getting more of those repetitions. Now, would that have prevented the two pick sixes? Maybe, maybe not. But I know for sure, um, you know, he's JJ still doesn't look like a fully polished quarterback who has been almost 2 years in his career. And that to me falls directly on a guy like Jim Harbaugh, where, you know, maybe his style as a coach, uh, and this flies in the face of, him being a quarterback whisperer, right? But his style as a coach is not conducive to a quarterback maximizing their potential, right? And maybe a change at the head coaching position, Jimmy left, would allow for something like that. So, I bring that up to basically say that if Jim Harbaugh left, would I be crying and feeling like, oh, all is lost? I would not. Um, but it's one of those things where it's either chicken or the egg, right? Like and stick with the devil, but besides the one you don't, whatever, however you say that, right? So I don't know, it's just interesting position Michigan's in, because you want to stay where you are, but you definitely can't abide this position every the same situation every offseason.
No, you can't. You can't have this continue to pop up every off season, and you would think that that was a conversation that was had between Ward Manuel and a Harbaugh last off season to say, "Hey, Jim, we've been through this a few times." Um, and whether the Vikings and other teams, the Raiders said no, or Harbaugh was the guy that made that decision regardless. Um, you know, Jim, we can't have this circus in the media every off season. It's not good for our brand. It's not good for recruiting. It's just not a good look. We don't see this going on everywhere else.
Can you recall within the other university, if a head coach having this type of year to year off season where he's constantly flirting with the NFL and putting his program in a just kind of bind? Because
No.
it's amazing, right? Historically, even currently, there are a lot of big time head coaches in college football, and like, and every now and then you see certain guys that get flirted, names get thrown out there when the, what's it called, Black Monday happens in NFL. And, every now and then you will see Urban Meyer over the years before he took the Jacksonville job, or you'll see Nick Saban, you'll see Lincoln Riley, you'll see guys like that. But it was never on a year to year basis. And you definitely didn't see situations where it seemed like they were making the first move to get to the NFL. It was NFL teams coming after them. It wasn't
Yeah.
like they had, like, hey, I'm available. That's my interpretation of Jimmy every offseason. Hey guys, I'm available if you need somebody to step in and run your NFL franchise. And I just, it's unprecedented, and I just, man, it's tough. It really is. I don't know how you're able to build or even sustain a program like this. And it's unfortunate too, because they have a pretty good team, I think, returning next year. Getting Blake Corn back is huge. Having JJ, going to, it'll be his third year. Donovan Edwards, guys like that, that's huge. I mean, they should have a chance to I know you may not like this, but repeat to win the Big Ten again. I think they're obviously going to be one of the top two teams. I know Penn State's going to be in the mix, and I can't remember the kid's name, but it's this big hot shot, young freshman 5-star quarterback that they got that is anticipated to be pretty good too. So they'll probably be in the mix as well. But you know, in- to do that, I think you need to have some kind of transparency and everybody be on the same page. And even the players that are currently on campus now, just to have some kind of understanding of that, if this guy's committed to being here. And I can't imagine being a player for Michigan and I think guys are starting to realize that this is a business and now the transfer portal has allowed them to do things like this as well. But at the same time, it's like, you want to run through a wall for your head coach, right? As a player, as a coach, you want your players to be able to do that for you. I mean, I just don't know emotionally how I could look at Jim Harbaugh as a player and feel, man, this guy's all in here, right? He's all in to win and to do the best here and build something special here when he's constantly doing this. And that's something I just have a hard time getting behind and supporting. And I don't see any other Michigan fans doing this as well.
So I don't know if there's two reasons why possibly we see this out of Harbaugh and nobody else. One would be that if there are contacts made, let's say between NFL teams and Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney, Lincoln Riley, fill in the blank, and those guys are just less curious, they already know what they want, or are they able to have a conversation and then determine, okay, I just wanted to find out A, B, and C about this NFL job. Okay, it's not for me. And it never sees the light of day and it never gets picked up by social media. Or is Jim Harbaugh that attractive to the NFL beyond all these other guys because he is the one guy in college football who has succeeded in the NFL? Is he that much more attractive than everybody else that's why we go through this?
Um, I, I think there's something to that. His brother's still in the NFL, so you still see Harbaugh. I think that helps. You still see the name Harbaugh when he's never left, right? John, his brother, and his brother has success, and it still has success even after the Super Bowl year. He hasn't won another Super Bowl, but his Baltimore Ravens have been in the playoffs seemingly every year, been very competitive, um, and and of course everyone remembers what Jim did with the 49ers, and now what he's doing with Michigan. So I think there's something to that. You see a coach that's had success in the past, and he seems to I want to say this 2 years ago, but he seems to have been win everywhere he goes, right? So he's built a resume that is, you could say, more well-rounded than some of the big time coaches in college football. Uh, but within that, he also tends to burn people out as well at every stop he's at. And I think that's also something that um people have noticed about Jim Harbaugh. And maybe that's why he can get the interviews, but he can't quite close on the jobs, right? He's just intriguing enough where your owner with your board of directors, your front office team or what have you, and you're looking at a list of candidates, and he's always one of those guys where he's intriguing enough to have on that list. Like, you know what, we should just kick the tires. Let's talk about this. Can he help us win? So no, I definitely think there's something to that. I think it's due to his all around resume. But within that, there are some red flags, and one of them being, even how he's handling this situation here in Michigan. I mean, I don't think it's too far fetched to say that if he wasn't coaching at Michigan, he was at any other university, that he probably wouldn't be here. This would have been left by now, either to another college or to the NFL. But because this was a special situation, this was home, that he's gotten more patience, at times where it seemed like it wasn't seem like he wasn't um, doing well, especially beating his rivals. Uh, and then also had a little bit more, appreciation and praise because of who he was as a player.
Absolutely. Dre, is there any thoughts that come to mind uh, after witnessing however much of the game Monday night that you did? Wasn't any reason to watch past a certain point, that's for
Right.
sure. But I don't know that anyone predicted that kind of annihilation.
Yeah. Oh man. It's one of those things where it was obvious going into the game that it was a lopsided matchup, right? Um, I believe that both was obvious that Ohio State would have made a better game because they took Georgia to the wire. Um, but even Michigan would have made it, I believe, a more compelling game. Would they have won? I don't think so, because I think Georgia showed that maybe throughout the year they were bored, despite them saying that their coach said people thought they'd be 7-5. But whatever, I don't know anybody who said that in the country,
Yeah.
but maybe that's some internal thing they did to trick themselves. Um, but it definitely takes you back because it shows you just how far you are away. At least I'm speaking as a Michigan fan, where I'm like, okay, I know 9 times out of 10 we play TCU, we still win that football game. We beat ourselves a ton. Um, Even if you just take away some of the self-inflicted mistakes, we still win that football game, and we still without playing our best, right? But we're not ready for that. And I think this past Georgia team wasn't quite as dynamic as the year before, but they're still a couple touchdowns better than Michigan and better than, I don't know, what, 97, 98% of the country. There's maybe only a handful, well, not even a handful, maybe two or three teams that can really compete on that level. And maybe Ohio State's one of them. Maybe Ohio State is built more for an SEC style game than a Big Ten game. And maybe that's like the secret code that Michigan and Harbaugh figured out, that they can't play this ground and pound, physical Big Ten type football game. But when you get on that type of display, uh, and it's SEC style football, speed, space, athleticism at its height. Ohio State is able to be one of those teams that can compete. Is that kind of how you're looking at it? Because when I look at that speed, when I look at the speed difference, I don't see guys on our team, at least enough guys, that have the speed like a Georgia has. You know, but I see that with Ohio State. But maybe from a physicality standpoint, it's interesting. It's matchups, right?
Exactly. There you go. It's
Hmm.
matchups because what Michigan did to Ohio State was no fluke.
Right.
Um, I don't think that would be a 3 touchdown game most of the time that the two played, but definitely Michigan would beat them other games. That wasn't like a 1 in 10 shot. It was whatever, 5-5, 6-4. Who knows? We'll never know. But I think it's reasonable to think that the two would split a series to some degree. And so what Michigan did was legit against Ohio State, and then Ohio State, of course, plays a great game against Georgia and shows that they're able to push them to the brink when Tennessee couldn't do that, Oregon couldn't do that, LSU couldn't do that. Certainly TCU couldn't even shoot. TCU looked like the worst team on their schedule. Uh,
Yeah.
and of course, TCU was able to beat Michigan. So you put all those together. If it weren't for matchups, it doesn't make sense. But it makes sense because of matchups.
Yeah. And this is a interesting comment. D Rock Iris, 1 month to prepare is better than 1 week. Obviously, it is. Except for when you're Michigan, because Harbaugh is 0-6, 1-6 in the last bowl games. In all 7 years he's been at Michigan. So there's something wrong with how he's preparing. Maybe it's too much time. I know that sounds silly, or he's not doing the right type of preparation. Um, so I mean, and maybe that's why Ohio State was able to have a better performance, They ready to go all in on Georgia, and if that game's played a week as opposed to a month, maybe we see a similar type of outcome. It turns out not what they did to TCU, but maybe Ohio State doesn't push Georgia to the brink as much. Who knows? Um, and that's another thing too. This that needs to be addressed, and I hope if Jim comes back, that is something that he takes it once he kind of takes the NFL crust out of his eyes. Excuse me, that he has some kind of self reflection, and he acts, and tries to figure out what's going wrong in these bowl games, no matter if it's on the playoff level or anything else, right? Capital One Bowl, Sugar Bowl, whatever it is, Fiesta Bowl. Um, excuse me. Why is he struggling? And his teams can look one way in the regular season, but when they get to the bowl game, they look totally unprepared. They don't even look like the same team. That's something that he needs to figure out.
Absolutely, he does.
What do you think it is?
There's only been, excuse me, there's only been, I would say the one game, meaning last year's Georgia game, would be the only game where I felt as though, regardless of preparation, regardless of time invested, that Georgia team was just, they were the best. And whether it was Michigan in their way, Ohio State in their way, whoever you wanted to put in their way, the score might have been different, but they were the best team. They were on a mission. They won the national championship. That was the one time that Michigan was outclassed. But all these other games, shoot, Florida State, Florida, on down the line, South Carolina, and shoot, the Alabama game, I guess maybe we can put that away to a certain extent. But Michigan had a second half lead in that game. So it's not like they've been overwhelmed and not able to stand toe to toe or didn't belong on the field in all those other games.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, and I'm with you with that. I remember watching, Desmond. Des is a huge Alabama fan, so we watched that game together, we talking trash to each other, and Michigan, went up early in that game or in the second half. At a certain point, I felt pretty good. So I, I I'm with you regarding that. They haven't been a total disaster, but for some reason they're just not coming out on the winning end. And it's one thing, and it could be recency bias, but it's one thing to lose to a Georgia team where you knew going in that it was an uphill battle, right? You knew that player to player, talent to talent, we're good, but they're a lot deeper than we are. Even if we do match up at a certain positional group, they're deeper than we are at that position, right? So we can't have any follow ups. Really can't have guys taking too many breaks between snaps, because we need all hands on deck. But losing the way they lost against TCU, and looking totally unprepared, and doing uncharacteristic things, especially with the self-inflicted mistakes, um, it's one of those things where if it wasn't the previous years of failures in terms of losing, I could write it off as, "Well, you know what, that was a one-off, not our day. Maybe we get enough sleep the night before, whatever it is. We just had a bad day at the office." Well, there's something critically wrong here, and then it leads you to all conspiracy theories, like, maybe every offseason Jimmy's always had a foot out the door or something like that. Is he fully focused on the task at hand? And I know that's ridiculous to say, but it's just, it gets to a point where after a while you start trying to figure out what's the disconnect. Now, ironically, his mentor, his his head coach at Michigan, at Bo Schembechler, didn't have a great bowl record either. So I don't know. Maybe there's something he learned from Bo. That yeah, hey, that whatever Bo was doing him, maybe some of the things he took from Bo in terms of how he runs his team, maybe that wasn't one of the things to take, if that was it. But
He's honoring Bo, I guess.
maybe that is. Maybe that's how he's honoring Bo. That's, and hey, maybe not the best thing to do in terms of bowl preparation. He has to figure it out. And another thing too, I think the quarterback position as well. You know, if I'm a highly rated quarterback, look, they're in the running for the Davis kid, who's in the 2024 recruiting class. Well, I mean, how do you hope to land that kid when you're doing this? You're playing this musical chairs game. Because JJ's not going to be here forever, right? So you need to have another horse in that stable ready to go. You need to constantly be on the move, constantly looking for ways to improve and solidify and stabilize your program. And the most important position is the quarterback position. You don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. You're not going anywhere. So, and what I don't want to see is a possible disaster situation, kind of similar to what the way D'Antonio was his last couple of years with MSU, where it seemed like he kind of reached a point that he got kind of stale, maybe not quite as motivated as he was early in his career, and he didn't recruit as well, right? He didn't kind of changed with the times, didn't change the staffing at MSU, and their program in turn became stale itself and really took a downturn very, very quickly. And I worry about that for Michigan. If even if he stays, what is he doing to constantly push this program forward? And I don't see how you can do that when you're constantly looking outwards as opposed to inward. Not trying to get too philosophical, but it's the truth. And you're constantly looking at externally, you can't fix anything internally based on what's going on. So I don't know. And Rico, Jesus, I agree with you here. There's a pretty good chance you could lose Davis. I'm not reporting that, but you do put those things at risk. Um, if you're doing the things he's doing. But Mark, look, you look at the entire landscape of the college football. How do you see this playing out for Michigan if Harbaugh did leave? Do you see them taking a step back? Do you think there's a way that they can somehow stabilize themselves and stay in contention for the Big Ten next year?
Yeah, of course, the hiring uh, is going to be crucial. Of course, that's the guy. That's the head man. That's the guy that leads the program. That's the face of the program. That's the guy that is going to be in charge of recruiting, and that's going to be the guy that is going to set the pace and set the vibe and the attitude and going forward. So that's a critical hire, replacing him. But you're Michigan, and you're paying Harbaugh top 3 to 4 money in college football. So you have the resources to go get somebody who's a capable replacement. So I don't think there's any question. Again, Ward Manuel, a guy that's an athletic director of one of the top universities in the country, this is where you get paid the big bucks, is to be able to scout leadership talent. This is where you basically, as an athletic director, there's a zillion different facets to your job, but two of the most important are hiring, having an eye for talent, hiring, and then also raising money. And if you can do those two things, then you're going to be really good at your job. So, um, yeah, as long as Ward Manuel is capable of finding that next guy, I don't think that they'll miss much of a beat.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, eh, I always felt like what's kind of helped Michigan back at times is this sense that we have to do things the Michigan way, and we have to have a Michigan man, and those who stay will be champions, and all this stuff. And I'm all for being prideful for your program, and but I think it's okay, and they tried this, right? But I still don't think they gave him full backing. They tried to go out the box a little bit and get Rich Rod. And that what I will hope is if Jimmy left, that they don't use that situation to pigeonhole themselves and not try something different again if they see it as a legitimate opportunity. That how about you learn from your mistake and not go out the box, but if you bring somebody in, fully get behind them and embrace what they're trying to do, and see what happens, as opposed to not really embracing what that person's trying to do.
You sized up the situation a few minutes ago about, is there somebody currently on the staff that they feel comfortable with raising their game to that level to take over this large of a program that knows the players, can keep things running on both sides of the ball as it currently is. I don't know if that guy exists currently on the staff. But I think that there are 3 to 4 coaches roughly per conference that are at least as good or in that range. Maybe they may not be quite as proven, but obviously we can name all the guys that are obviously proven, and they're most likely not coming to Michigan because they got their own deal going, whether that's Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, and they're making $1 zillion and they're already with elite type programs. But then you've got this tier of Matt Campbell, PJ Fleck, Pat Fitzgerald, those kind of guys. Luke Fickle obviously just took a job. He's not going to go at this point, but
Mark
uh,
Stoops, probably Mark Stoops out
Mark
of Kentucky.
Stoops.
Yeah,
Mark Stoops is a good, what can Mark Stoops do with the opportunity to recruit elite talent versus recruiting and signing a handful of 4 stars and the rest 3 stars and coaching them up and putting together really good teams?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I want to highlight this super chat, Nick. Thank you for your super chat. Now, what you've said, no way in the world would I do this. Offer Harbaugh a 10-year, 150 million contract with a 65 million buyout. Harbaugh will always flirt with the NFL until he can't financially. I would tell you, if that's what it takes to keep Jim Harbaugh not interested in NFL, then he can just pack his bags and keep on walking.
Amen.
Um,
You,
I
you, you
nowhere in
don't
the world do
want,
that.
you don't want, and I don't think that would be the incentive with our Harbaugh, because I do agree that there is a strong possibility, and I believe that this is the case, that you can love your school and want to be the coach there, but also remember that what you missed out on and what you weren't able to accomplish at the next level, and consider that to be the ultimate prize and the ultimate challenge. And you can be swayed in both directions. You can,
He could
you
be
know,
torn. Yeah, he
yeah,
can
you can
like
be torn. And I
yeah,
believe that he actually is. I
yeah.
I I don't have any question that this guy loves this school and
Oh
this
yeah,
football program as much or more than anybody else in the country. He
yeah,
played there. He worshiped the coach he played for. He's been connected to this university for 40 years.
yeah.
I absolutely believe that. But y-
It's how you're going about it. It's how
w-
you're going about it, and and that's the thing. Like, and if some of you who have now joined, I'll make sure to restate this. I am not condemning him wanting to do something different with his career. I totally understand it. He was really a bad first half because the 49ers really picked it up in the second half. He was a bad first half from winning a Super Bowl, right? And let's be honest here. The fact that he lost the Super Bowl to his brother, I'm sure is another is a big part of that, right? You don't think they use that in their conversations? That's not part of their playful banter. I'm sure it is. The Harbaugh family is a very, very competitive family. They both have stated this as a fact. That's how they are. That's how they grew up. So I know that it's always been something that has been a thorn in his side that he wasn't able to get that elusive Super Bowl ring. But and I understand him wanting to go back and being torn. But if you really love, since you love this university, try your best to do right by them. And that's the main thing that I ask. And I don't. And it may be where he is, he he can't be super definitive, but it just comes off as he's being very misleading at times. And that could be just due to the way he communicates and his personality. We all know he's a different kind of guy. If you don't know that, just listen to him in interviews, and you'll pick that up relatively quickly. But I don't know. You know, it's one of those things I do hope that does get straightened out, you know, soon. You know, I would love to come on for us to do the show next week, and you know, we have some kind of understanding if he's really going to leave or not. But the way it looks as of now, you just it's going to be a continuous thing until every NFL job is solidified and there's no more openings. There maybe his name is going to be somehow in the mix, and that will keep Michigan fans keep us on on our toes for sure. What's interesting, I would love to find out how Ohio State fans feel about this. And I know the situations were totally different, but when Urban Meyer left, I was very upset. I was hurt because I knew that we would never have a chance to get him. Never have a chance. He left undefeated versus University of Michigan. It will always bother me. Now, excuse me. Now, Ohio State fans don't have to worry about that. They beat Jimmy pretty bad for 5 years straight. Well, 4 years straight. But now he's gotten the last 2 years. Would Ohio State fans feel a little, you know, like, man, you know, that guy got us last 2 years. I really want to get him one more time before I left, or would it be like, well, you know, no, we got him enough times at first, you know, on the front end, and you know, whatever. Go ahead and leave. We'll just take that out on your next coach.
I think there's probably some folks out there that would love, since he's nabbed the last two, would love to send him on his way with a loss. Um, I need to bolt. Certainly, feel free to take this on as long as you'd like. I would like to wrap up one thought about all this money that's being proposed by our guy, Nick. Jim Harbaugh likes being at Michigan. You don't need to entice him to be the Michigan head coach. He is the Michigan head coach, and he loves his job. I don't think the money, money. Of course, you need to be competitive. He wants to feel valued. He wants to be one of the top paid coaches. All that, but you don't need to just go crazy and just break a few different banks just to keep him here. I don't think that's the answer.
Yeah, this isn't about money. This is about, I don't want to say power, but it's about, thanks, Mark. This is about, you know, the job, the nature of the job, being in the NFL. So, um, you know, of course, money does talk, but I don't think they have to go that far to try to entice them. Actually, I think they'll be a little bit desperate. I don't love any coach that much. Maybe, maybe Nick Saban in his prime. I think, and Dennis will have to confirm this for me, but I think, you know, Saban has this thing with Bama that pretty much every year, you know, he has like a new contract. He pretty much says what he wants, and they just sign it for him. Well, he just signs it, right? So, um, you know, I'm not quite. I don't think I'll ever be there with a head coach, and definitely not Jim Harbaugh. I respect him. He's done some good things, but he's not getting a blank check from me. Or let me rephrase that. I don't want Michigan giving him some kind of blank check and saying, "Please, Jimmy, don't go." I don't think he's not that. He's not that. Um, So, well, guys, that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to cover today. Um, we peaked at 102 people, so thank you all for joining. Please make sure to hit the like button on this video. Um, you know, we appreciate you, and I'm hoping, as some of you might be hoping, that you know we this is figured out soon because it's a distraction. I think it's slowing the momentum down for this program, where they, you know, they really should be, you know, at an all-time high and off to the races in terms of, you know, getting some of this highly valued talent around the country, both in the transfer portal and recruiting wise. And I just feel like that this distraction um, is a big reason why um, they haven't been able to do that. So, once again, thank you for your time. Please, please, please hit the likes for the stream, and we'll see you guys again next week. And have a good rest of your week. Take care. See ya.